So what's been your proudest moment, Laurence, in a glorious career?
What, in showbiz or in the
In
wrestling world?
life generally?
Um, Being a dad to my boys.
And you are a proud father, and I think it's a worry to you when your children get abroad, when they have their electronic devices taken. You can see the stress that's put on them.
Yeah, I mean that's deliberate, pernicious intimidation by the police, and it's shameful, and they should be ashamed of how they behave. But kids are it's very difficult for kids nowadays as well. They're growing up with these devices. They can be bullied at school. They can be bullied online. They can pick up all sorts of information that you don't want them to really know. They're being heavily sexualized at a very young age. I'm so grateful for the fact that I was one of the last actually generations to have grown up without a mobile phone, and I did have to entertain myself, and I make a habit when my kids are around of doing things that are pretty analog with them as much as possible, and trying to make sure that we don't get lost in Mark Zuckerberg's meta world
Yeah,
forever.
no, and others are available, and this is why they're banning it in places like Australia and stuff like that. And career-wise, you mentioned that obviously from a family point of view, your family first, but career-wise, what's your proudest moment?
Well, it's sad, really, that career-wise, because I was just starting to get the work I wanted to get before I decided to open my stupid mouth and say that I wasn't a trans person or whatever you've got to say to work in show business nowadays. So I have a very fond memory of my last job where I played a gay yoga teaching drug dealer from Manchester for Netflix, and I enjoyed that. I hope one day, fingers crossed, that the world will return to being less sensitive, and we can have a plurality of voices and views in art, because art will only suffer if you don't allow more voices and more opinions, and more. You get different performances, less woke lectures.
No, absolutely. And biggest regret?
Biggest regret is any time I've acted over impulsively. And I'm a fairly impulsive person. So I've learned some checks and balances on my impulsivity, but there have been some pretty huge decisions in my life that I made impulsively, which I wouldn't say I regret, but I have had to live with the consequences of.
And the biggest one of those?
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to say.
Okay. And finally, how would you, bizarre question, because you've got so much longer ahead of you, how would you like to be remembered?
Um, I find the idea of being remembered strange, because if you think about it, there are, my grandfather is not remembered by many, many, many people. He's not remembered by my sons. He never met them. So I would want to be remembered for someone who spoke out when it was time to speak out, and didn't mind the fact that I would lose what I lost to do so.
Fantastic. Um, as always, an absolute pleasure. Laurence, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Andrew.